Hi, I'm Dr. Donald DeFabio, and welcome to the Mayor's Roundtable. Intelligent conversation, a semi-round table, bringing you information from your mayor, Robert Woodruff. Mayor, once again, good evening.
Good evening to you.
You know, for summertime, a lot's really been going on. Usually you'd think it's going to be kind of slow and sleepy at the municipal as well as the state level, but a lot's been happening in Berkeley Heights, so I want to get an update.
Okay.
Between what's happened last month and what's going forward. Okay. And, you know, even into September, I know it's going to be culminating into some very interesting, shall we say, things that will be going on involving the state and us. So for summertime, there's a lot happening. But, you know, I want to take a quick moment to thank you for taking the time to bring this information out to your constituents. Media, video, that's the way to go today.
You're welcome.
Getting the information out expediently, quickly. Our turnaround time is a week, some generally less, but we'll say a week. That's pretty good. So kudos to you.
Well, thank you, Doc, and thank you to everybody who's involved in this production. I think we've got a pretty good thing going, and I think that you know, with all of our various elected officials and those who work for the town appearing and letting the townspeople understand how the town operates. I think it's a good thing, and I thank you for affording the opportunity.
My pleasure. You know, it goes right back at you. And again, Nick Schiavo of the Communications Committee.
Correct.
Nick, hard worker, thanks for putting this together. This has been his vision and working with the Township Committee for, what, 6 years now? And we're moving forward. It's only going to get better. But enough accolades. Let's go back to you. All right, last month, we were talking about lots of things. You know, redevelopment was number one. We had zoning meetings, planning council meetings. Where do we stand with those meetings and what's going forward with the redevelopment?
Okay, what I'd like to do tonight, Doc, and we've got two council men here, Mark Fasher, who was on last month, and we dealt with the affordable housing. Mark's going to address some tweaks and changes that have occurred, and oddly enough, positively for us, which is
nice.
It's been a rarity in this process, but Mark's going to get into that. And we also asked, and he was kind enough to send to come on, Mike DeQuilla, brand new council person.
Oh, we got a freshman coming on.
A freshman coming on.
All right, look out.
And Michael brings a unique skill set to our group. You know, he's in the construction field. He's done construction management, engineering. So that, I think, is a nice segue for us to talk about our brand new administrative building. And Michael's going to talk about you know, some of the concerns that we need to have moving forward, so that, you know, the council has an obligation. We're the steward of the township's funds, and we're going to take an active oversight, supervision, if you will, of this facility.
So
obviously,
that was just fortuitous that the new councilman happens to have a background in engineering
Well,
and
you know what?
construction, or was that kind of, how did that happen? Seriously.
Well, you know what, I don't know
Because
whether-
that makes a big difference when you have
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
in the know with some of these decisions. This, you know, it's a big enough a decision if you have to renovate a house, let alone a huge building like this.
right, I think this highlights how when individuals choose to run for the township council,
Okay.
it's extremely important that they bring something to the table that's going to benefit the township. Simply saying, I want to be here, really isn't enough, okay? Simply saying, well, I come to meetings, really isn't enough. All right, so Michael brings a skill set which no one else has, and it was recognized early on, and fortuitously, we were going through the largest building venture in the history of this town, and Michael's on board, and it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah, so that's how it happens. That's great. Good.
Right.
So hence, let's go back to the meetings now. We've confirmed the layout of the new building, correct?
Correct,
That's still
and Michael
to
will
go.
get into that a little bit tonight.
Okay.
Okay, we've got some bonding to do. That's going to take some time. The bonding will have two different levels. There'll be a bonding that for the building and a bonding to be paid with respect to the church should the swap occur, which
Okay.
we anticipate will. This building's moving forward as a standalone structure, no matter what happens.
Okay.
So obviously,
Great.
and Michael will talk a little bit about that in a few moments.
All right. And then we're going to retouch about the redevelopment. There's some good numbers coming down, I hear.
Good
Mark
numbers?
Fasher was telling us, Councilman Fasher was saying that we're going to be going to battle, or maybe not battle, but we're bringing our petition, our concerns to the state. And right now, it looks pretty fortuitous for us.
Well, it's improved. Okay, but we have to be careful. It is in the middle of litigation, and Mark will convey that which he thinks is appropriate given the circumstance. So we're looking forward to it.
All right, sounds like a plan. Well, we got a lot to talk about. I think we'll go over the redevelopment. We'll bring on Councilman Fasher first, and then we'll finish up with the new building plans.
Sounds good, Doc.
All right, we'll be right back. I'm Dr. Donald DeFabio with Mayor Robert Woodruff. It's the Mayor's Roundtable. Welcome back to the show. It's the Mayor's Roundtable. And we're going to continue our discussion now about the redevelopment, but specifically affordable housing. Mayor, our guest on the last show was Councilman Fasher, Mark Fasher. Thank you again for coming back. Now, this is our trifecta, is repeat third time. It's your hat trick. So good job.
This time's a charm.
All right. Well, now we're going to get you to smile a little bit and everybody will be really happy, okay, Councilman? But seriously, you are our affordable housing king, guru, you know the nuts and bolts. Mayor, some exciting stuff has come down, correct?
It has. A case came down about 3 weeks or so ago, which, as I said at the town meeting at that time, the good guys finally won one.
So it was a case from one of the other municipalities?
Well, it was.
Or how did it come out?
It came out of Ocean County, and I'll let Mark talk about that. It went up to the appellate division, and it was decided on a 3-0 basis, which is very strong. So, you know, Mark can speak to that and how we think it may affect us. And like I said, I've said to other people, and I'm sure Mark would confirm this, we'd rather be on this side of this decision than the other side. So that's where we are right now.
Because very tenuous last month. We started out with a huge number, then it was kind of down a little bit. So last I heard it was in that anywhere between 500 and 800 range with the housing. Where do we stand now?
Okay, so in March, I gave the history of affordable housing.
Exactly.
This dates back to 1975.
Mount
not
Laurel.
going to do that. Mount Laurel, not going to do that again. In June, I reported that Berkeley Heights had been selected in Union County to try the issue of how you count up the affordable housing units in this region. Today, I'm going to be focusing on that decision that Mayor Woodruff mentioned, and also where we go from here. So, as always, our remarks have to be a little bit guarded because we're in the middle of active litigation, and we're going to talk about general things that are going on, but certain strategic things, obviously, we need to discuss with our lawyers. But we previously reported that Fair Share Housing Center and the Builders Association, you could view them as the plaintiff in the affordable housing litigation. Their experts initially said that Berkeley Heights' share was 858 affordable housing units.
I remember that, yeah.
Then, roughly in April or May, thereabouts, their expert relooked at their numbers and said our number would be 598.
That was the number we bounced around last time.
Right. And we were waiting for settlement demands. They haven't really been forthcoming. And what I should say is when you look at their number, it's really comprised of two components. One is the present or prospective need, meaning how many units are required from today going forward. But it was also their opinion that there was a gap period. And in that I mean it's the period from 2000 to 2015. Remember, we talked about there being different rounds, round one of COA, round two of COA, round three, there was supposed to be regs adopted. They were never adopted. And that gap period relates to the period that there weren't round three regulations. We believe that there was no such thing as a gap period, and the other side believed that there was. Then on July 11th, the appellate division heard that issue of
What you were referring
Correct.
to? Okay.
whether and to what extent there would be a gap period. And the appellate division decided 3-0 that there isn't a gap period, that indeed all the, based on the legislative history, the readings of the statute, it just so happens that Berkeley Heights lawyers were the lead lawyers on the brief in the case, and we and the rest of the municipalities, if you want to look at it that way, prevailed on the issue of the gap period.
So that means when we look at the calculation now, considering that, what does the number look like?
Well, if you look at how and the methodology employed by the experts for the other side, we believe that the number would drop to 339, down from 598. So the prospective need would be 339. Again, we don't agree with that number. Our experts are telling us the number's much lower, more like 200. But based on their decision-making process, we believe the number would be around there when you look at the way their expert did it. Fair Share Housing Center is seeking a stay of the decision, meaning don't apply it because it'll cause harm by applying it. Again, we don't agree with that. We don't believe that's the case. They've also sought certification to the New Jersey Supreme Court, wanting the Supreme Court to hear that decision. If it were 2-to-1 decision, that would go up, but this was 3-0. So I don't believe the Supreme Court has to entertain it. Whether they do or not remains to be seen. In the meantime,
What's the time frame on all these appeals and stays? What's the time frame on this?
really don't know. From the time the appellate division heard oral argument in this case until the time they rendered the decision, it was actually pretty quick. It was around a month.
Yeah, that's very quick.
That is
the
quick,
appellate
yeah.
division, yeah. That's very quick.
So it can go, there's no way of knowing.
Well, I think there's an acknowledgement up and down the judiciary that this is an extremely important issue, and I think that decisions will be handed down in an expedient fashion. So
got it.
I would think.
So
okay.
the wheels can move faster if they need to.
The wheels can move faster. Mark, fill in if you would. Obviously now we're at this point, and okay, again, this is a number that our opponents disagree with because they don't accept the gap circumstance. What's next?
Well, notwithstanding what the court's decision was, the plaintiffs are suggesting that notwithstanding the absence of a gap period, there's some pent-up demand. I'm not sure what their argument is. I thought the case was pretty crystal clear, but they're suggesting that they ought to be able to relook at their numbers, see if there's any pent-up demand, so to speak, related to the gap period, and they ought to be able to adjust their numbers. We obviously don't agree with that position at all. We thought the decision was pretty
solid,
clear,
yeah.
but what happens remains to be seen. I guess on a separate but related note, also on July 11th, our attorneys filed a motion on what's called the unmet need. And what the unmet need is, after this process is established by the court and numbers are set, will be applied a number. All the other municipalities will be applied a number. We only have so much land available in town for developing these projects and affordable housing units. And to the extent we're given a number and there's a delta or gap between the number we're ultimately able to build out and that which is assigned to us by the court, that would be the unmet need. The motion that we filed on the 11th suggests that there isn't anything called an unmet need when you read the Fair Housing Act under the legislative intent or the history of the statute. And so we believe, again, whatever the number is, we're going to make every effort, as we always have, to comply, and we have complied at every step of the process. But once we're assigned a number, we'll do our best. And then if there's no land, there's no land, but there's no such thing as an unmet need. And that's a motion that's pending before the court.
Okay, which means those units would just kind of disappear.
They disappear. We
Because
can't.
you can't do it.
We met our obligation,
As best we
and
could.
it disappeared.
Is this going to court, or what's going? I mean, you made one presentation. They looked at it. The appellate division looked at it. But when do we have our day to really put our numbers in front of everybody?
Okay, so September 6th is the trial date.
And it's an actual trial. It's not a hearing. It's not an arbitration hearing.
Well, there's no jury. It's a hearing, but it's going to be
called
a
a trial.
trial. It's
Okay.
a trial. Proofs are going to be submitted,
Okay.
and decisions are going to be made.
Got it.
So September 6th trial date, we asked for a 30-day extension. I don't believe it was granted. There may be a small extension to the extent the other town that is involved with us as a backup, Summit, settles. There might be an extension to that date when their trial was supposed to happen. But we're prepared. We're getting prepared to try the case.
Great. Well, what about these towns that settle? Because there were other towns
Well,
that have settled already, correct?
Yeah, when you settle a case, no matter whether it be in this forum, such as the affordable housing circumstance, you settle because both sides want to take away the risk of moving forward from one way or the other. Once you settle, that's it.
You're done, yeah.
So those towns that have determined that they were going to take a number, and maybe they weren't happy with that number, but that's a decision they made. That's
You're
it.
done.
It's over. They cannot benefit from, if in fact
work
this
we're doing here.
correct. This, in other words, assuming that this, where it currently sits, moves forward, which I think is beneficial to us. Those towns have forfeited that opportunity. And that's the decision they made. You give up, you get peace of mind, you exchange, there's considerations for that. So those towns, that's the way it is.
Yeah, great. So same legal team moving forward that was at the appellate
Yes, they're continuing to represent us. We've got our experts. We've got to prepare. There's a lot of briefing. There's motion practice, but we will be prepared. We've got to be prepared. It's too important an issue. We're continuing to work with landowners that are interested in building projects in town that'll have an inclusionary or affordable housing component to them. We'll continue to entertain settlement demands. Obviously, we don't want to try a case if we don't have to try the case, but we will absolutely, positively be prepared.
We got our heels in the sand right now, so to speak.
Unfortunately, we have no choice.
Mayor, as we wrap up, Councilman Fasher's really detailed explanation of what's going on. And for people who missed some of the previous shows, they're online at Tap Into, and as well as the township website, so you can watch them there. Just in closing, why is this so important that we are so diligent and so why is it important to the citizens, your constituents, that we are so diligent in this process?
Well, you have to understand, 4 of the major movers behind our opponents in this case are building associations, all right? So we need to foster reasonable growth, all right? And that means when various apartment complexes, condos, townhouses, whatever, they're put up in a responsible fashion. The density is controlled. We control it.
Got it.
All right, we have our own, regulation, variances and so on and so forth. We control it. Okay, and that's why it's so important, okay, that we maintain a position here, because once somebody else is telling you what you need to do, all right, and you've lost, the autonomy that, that comes with self-governance. So it's extremely important that we stay on top of this.
Perfect.
It really is.
Makes a lot of sense. Councilman Fasher, well done again. Appreciate
Thank you very
it.
much.
More smiles this time too. I like that. You're
There
getting
you go.
better. More time. You're going to be telling jokes.
This is serious stuff.
It is, but you can do it with a smile. But good job. We appreciate your time. Thank you. I want to remind everybody about the summer concert series right here in town. A lot of great shows. Chicago, Beatlemania. Oh gosh, there's an oldies one.
Billy Joel.
Billy Joel. So come on out and watch them. When we come back, we're going to talk about the new buildings that are going to be happening right in here for the redevelopment on the Mayor's Roundtable. For the Mayor, for Councilman Fasher, I'm Dr. Don Fabio. Welcome back to the show, the Mayor's Roundtable. We have a first-time guest with us, Councilman Mike DeQuilla. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to have you out. And we already introduced you. Mayor went over your credentials. You're a freshman, but you're also happen to be an engineer, which is great, because what we want to talk about is your specialty, is the new municipal complex. And as much as I really tried to name it the DeFabio Berkeley Heights Municipal Complex, I don't know if that's happening, but no, seriously, what's going on with the municipal complex? Mayor, I know you have some concerns or thoughts.
Well, both, but We are proceeding. Obviously, everyone's aware of the quote swap, okay, insofar as it has to do with the Catholic Church and the exchange of property and the purchase of some dollars that go along with that and us getting another property. That's going to take some time because of certain needs that the church has, but we're moving forward, okay, and we are in a short while going to meet with bond counsel and so on and so forth. So, but what's important and what's exciting is that we are going to get this building built under any circumstance. It doesn't matter whether the exchange takes place with the church or not. And that's why I thought it was appropriate for Mike to get in here. Mike's background as an engineer and a building manager is ideal. And you know, just to let the public know the role of the council and how we see this as possibly coming down. And Michael, along those lines, obviously, if you could just let the people know what are we looking at with this building? We're kind of getting there, but what are we looking at?
Sure, absolutely. So at the last council meeting, Councilman Fascia presented our final floor plan for the building. So we got some comments from the seniors. We got some comments from the finance department say, hey, they didn't like some of the locations. And what's nice is that we're in what they call the schematic design, where we can now take it and move things around. So the comments were taken, the architect looked at it, and one of the great things that came out of it is that we moved the council chamber that was on the upper floor down to the main level or the ground level. So that way everything's on the ground floor, and which will also double as a space for the seniors. In addition, we move our finance from the first floor or the ground level up to the upper level, put them closer with the administrator and everybody. So we actually were able to make a little bit more efficient design.
Nice.
So which is great. So now we're ready to move on to the next phase. So at the last meeting, we took a little straw poll and said, yes, this is our final floor plan for the new municipal complex. We're ready to move into the next phase. Well, what's that next phase? It's actually now taking the architect from a couple pages on schematic designs and now taking this into the detailed documentation, which will show how we're going to build this building. Okay. And there's a lot of parts and pieces that go into building a building. It's not just an architect that will draw the pictures of where the floor is going to build out. You have to talk about heating and air conditioning. How are you going to heat this place? How are you going to air condition it? How are you going to run all your data? How are you going to do AV? Very important. So these are now all the parts and pieces the architect is putting together his team to say, here are the different pieces. So that way we have any different ideas and concepts, they're the ones going to help design it. So you think about a chamber of commerce like we're sitting in. What goes into a council chambers? Well, yes, you have chairs and tables, but let's talk about audiovisual. How are we going to do it? Are we going to continue the same way we have wires on the floor to microphones? Are we now going to go into wireless? How are we going to do our media? We have sometimes media presentations by different people. Are we going to still have a screen that we put up, or do we consider permanent TV? So there's a lot of ideas and everything that has to be come into, and that's where I feel the role of the council is going to be, where these ideas are going to be presented to the council. We provide our feedback. So besides our normal fiduciary responsibility, making sure any contracts and any of the expenditure of money is done efficiently, it's also to make sure we provide the guidance in making sure that when we're laying out this building, it's done to both taking the input from both the citizens, administrator, and everybody from the town, and of course council from our experiences. So
That's a lot going on.
that's a lot going on.
Yeah. So when are we looking to culminate this? I mean,
Well,
we got the floor plan, but that's a lot of information.
This is, well, this obviously has to do with the bonding and getting the dollars and moving forward. But what I think we all agree on with the council, with Mike's leadership in this area, is we want to be on top of this when it starts. When the shovel goes into the ground, the people we're dealing with need to know exactly what we want. All right, and Michael, along those lines, how do you see the supervision of this project? Obviously, you look at the building, and there's like 3 sections to it, okay? You got administration, you got the library, you got police, okay? And there's some commingling, but essentially it's a three different blocks, so to speak. What are your thoughts about that?
Absolutely. So normal construction, the way a lot of towns and a lot of businesses do, they do what they do. They design it, an architect puts all the plans together and everything, they go out for bid, and then you get a general contract that comes there and builds it. One concept, pros and cons to that. An idea that was recommended that we're going to look into also is doing what they call a construction manager at risk, where you bring in the construction manager, the person who's going to oversee the construction of it during the design phase. So that way they're there while the architect is designing it to say, hey, you know what? Okay, on paper that might look great, but from the last 3 buildings we built, you may want to think about something like that. So we're getting the input of the team that would be involved with during the construction of it during the design. So you get what they call constructability reviews to say, instead of having, they put something on paper where it looks great on paper, you start to build and all of a sudden, like, wait a minute, this door just went into this hallway that shouldn't be there. So you have those ideas in there. And we put a little bit of control on that because we put in what they call is a guaranteed maximum price, where this construction manager during the bidding process will say, well, when the drawings get to a certain point, we'll say, we guarantee that this building will be built at this price, which locks in a price while we're still finalizing design. Well, when this price is locked in, this gives us the opportunity now to start the site civil work, which is basically getting the property ready to start the building. Because as the mayor said, this is breaking out into 3 or 4 different components. The first phase, we have a salt dome which Curry sits right now, where the new municipal complex is going to go. That has to get moved. Then we have to get the site ready to start building new building. We build the building. Once the building is built, we got to get everything from this building into the new building, take this building down, and all said and done, and when everything's all said and done, have all new parking. That way we have our expanded parking for the community, for the train station. So while all this is going on, we still have to keep an active building here, an active parking lot for our commuters, and keep everything going, moving smoothly. This concept with the CM and the GMP type process, this allows us to get out ahead of time. So that way we're not waiting till where we have every single color picked on the rooms and carpeting and everything. Once we know the footings, the foundation, the structure of the building, this is it, this is how we're going to build it. Let's get that going in the ground so actually we can accelerate our schedule and also bring this project in at or under budget.
That'd be nice.
So is this almost a segmented approach?
Pretty much.
Okay, so you get your footings in.
You get your footing and foundation so you can start that while we're still, finalizing. You know what, I don't want a blue room, I want a green carpet in my office, or this or that. And it's all different things that, typically under a GC type bid, that if you decide, you go out to bid, you bid it, and it says it's going to be a blue carpet in there. You know what, we change our mind, we want a green carpet. Well, it's already bid, the document says thou shalt supply a blue carpet. Well, if you want a green carpet, that's a change order, that's an extra. Yeah. Whereas this method allows us to get these things going, finalize these concepts and ideas, so that way you try and minimize change orders or any additional expenses during the construction.
Much more fluid. Sounds much more fluid.
Yeah, and Michael, let's assume that this particular approach is the appropriate approach. How does this affect maybe the number of contractors out there that may want to get involved in this, okay? Maybe some contractors say, I don't like getting involved in this kind of approach. Others say, okay. Do you see any impact there?
Not really, because you're still bringing on the subcontractor. So you're not going to have one company that says, I do all the mechanical work, the electrical work, the plumbing, the fire alarm, the fire suppression, all these pieces. So you still have your subcontractors. So that some of the companies that do the GC work also do this CM work. So you're not really excluding anybody. So you still have that opportunity for all those different companies that bid on the work, which includes local vendors. So if we do have some local vendors that still want to bid on it, they may not be big enough to handle a large project, but you know what? A local vendor can bid on a fire alarm work or this piece or that piece. So it still gives an opportunity for them to bid on this work to this on this approach. So,
do you think that as the approach that you've described here, it sounds as if it could be somewhat of a cost saver,
absolutely,
potentially. Does it also impact the speed within which the building can be put up?
Absolutely. It starts to accelerate. So again, under the old GC work, you would have to wait until the drawing package is completely done, everything is finalized and everything. Then you go out to bid, you have that 3 to 6 months period to bid it, then you start the construction. So yes, I feel that this is the best way to accelerate our schedule, and also again, having that construction manager during the design identify any potential issues that would cost us money later on during the construction process.
Cool.
Okay. Well,
Cool stuff. I think we have a lot going on, and I think we're going to be having Councilman DeQuillo back again.
Pretty good chance.
So you did a good job. You gave
Thank
us
you.
a lot of information, but there's a lot more is going to be forthcoming,
Absolutely.
since this will be a very fluid construction. Mayor, one question and then one
Sure.
final comment. One question is shovel in the ground?
Well,
Best
yeah,
case scenario, give me a date.
the best case scenario, what is
Magic wand.
Magic wand. Oh, magic wand would be tomorrow. But
Okay.
there are no magic wands. Okay, but
Hey, this is TV.
well, we've got to set the price, and as Michael said, our architect, they're sharpening their pencils to get the numbers. Once we get
Okay.
the numbers, we get to our bond council. Once we get to the bond council, we then get out there and get some dollars, hopefully before the end of the year. Hopefully.
And how long do you think a project like this would take to come to culmination?
Probably about a 9-month design period and about a 1.5 to 2 year construction. So about a 3-year process, soup to nuts, from the beginning to the end.
We're not holding everybody to those dates, gentlemen, but
Okay.
just some numbers. Councilman Tequillo, thank you very much. Excellent
problem.
presentation. We will invite you back. Mayor, once again, it's a pleasure.
Doc.
Appreciate it. I'm Dr. Donald DeFavor for the Mayor's Roundtable. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, send your questions through Bobby Pierre at Tap into Ask the Mayor, and we'll bring them on. Have a good night.